Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Dan Mandis here along with Johnny B, Joan Jones, Stephen Bucci is joining us live. Stephen, always great to have you on for your perspective and analysis on all things foreign policy. So Bashar al-Assad, he has fled to Moscow. This is a very big deal with, as many say, global ramifications. I want to ask you a few questions here regarding Syria. And people are saying this is a victory for the U.S., it's a victory for Europe, and it is a loss for Iran and Russia. Talk a little bit, first of all, I want to get into who has now taken over. But first, just talk about what it means for two of our arch enemies, Iran and Russia.
Well, it's a big loss for Iran. Syria was one of Iran's linchpin partners. Weaker partner, granted, but its location was critical as a staging area for Iran to support Hezbollah, for Iran to get things out of Syria and then around and then down to the Gaza Strip to support Hamas. And likewise, Hezbollah and the Iranians helped prop up Assad. So for them, this is a major, major loss. It shows, one, that Hezbollah no longer has the ability to help its other partners in this Iranian coalition. The Iranians are weakened as well, or actually shown to be much weaker than everybody thought they were through the conflict with Israel. And it's really taken the whole Shia crescent that Iran had formed down a whole bunch of pegs. For Russia, similarly, it's shown that even though Russia likes Assad, is now giving him shelter, they were no longer able to provide adequate support to him to keep him in power because of everything that they are using up and committing in Ukraine. So it's also showing that the Russians have some limits here, and they've probably reached them and may have exceeded them all already, which is a good thing for Ukraine, and particularly going into any sort of negotiations after the Trump administration take power. But right now, it was a lethal combination for Assad. I'll throw in added, another player nobody seems to talk about very much is Turkey. And the Turks have put their support behind this so-called rebel coalition, who are primarily radical Sunnis.
Well,
this was a Sunni Shia thing as well.
Yeah.
And, and to be honest with you, it's a net win for the world that Assad is gone and that it's decremented Russia and Iran. But it's not necessarily time to do the happy dance. We don't know what these guys are going to do now that they get into power. The people who are at the head of this rebel coalition are not our buddies.
No, I mean, let's talk about, if I may, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. I probably shanked that. But, I mean, this group has ties in the past to al-Qaeda and ISIS. They're still considered a terrorist organization, and their leader, a guy by the name of Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, we've got a $10 million bounty on his head, and he's considered a terrorist. He worked with the likes of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Now, he says that he's a changed man. Tell me a little bit about this organization, because I share your concerns.
Yeah, look, these guys are, they changed their name. They were the Al-Qaeda al-Nusra group, which was just the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. Not a big group, but with a lot of very tough fighters, a lot of bomb-making capabilities. They were part of the A-team, and they withdrew from Al-Qaeda alleging that they disagreed with Al-Qaeda's view of taking over the whole world, which is also the view that ISIS has. They want to take over the whole world too. But this group has now said that they no longer have a beef with the United States. They no longer have a beef with Israel, though that's really kind of dubious. They just want to get their country free of Assad, and that's all they were looking for. So they didn't want to take over the whole world for Allah, but they wanted to take over Syria for Allah. I am not quite ready to give them a pass. And even the Biden administration, previous to yesterday, wasn't. They didn't take him off the terrorist list. They didn't take al-Jawlani off the terrorist list. As you said, there's big bounties on his head. But all of a sudden yesterday, Joe Biden's offering humanitarian support. He's offering, you expect them to send over some lawyers, help them write their constitution. Look, these are not good guys.
Right.
These are hardcore bad guys about whom we know very little other than the hate that they have spewed out and that they have inflicted on other people in Syria for the last couple of years. Well, it is way too soon to start throwing them support, whether it's rhetorical, financial, or military.
Well, you do have, Syria, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be, but they've got Christians in Syria. They've got a very diverse sort of, nation there. And so are they going to come in and are they going to impose, very strict Islam rules? And all of a sudden we're going to be, right back to where we were years ago during the Obama administration when Christians were being killed across the Middle East.
That's the danger, Dan. It really is. You're right. Syria, even under the Assads, was a lot more, it's kind of hard to say, but the cosmopolitan. They were open to diversity. As long as you played along with the Assads, you were okay. Now we have these radical groups, Hezbollah and the Iranians, radical Shia. Assad, also a Shia, not particularly radical religiously, but, a horrible dictator. But now you have these guys with the Al-Qaeda background and the ISIS background who are very radical Sunnis, Salafists. And they, if you're a Shia in Syria right now or a Christian, you're not feeling real comfortable that these guys are going to be in charge. And I already saw videos of these guys grabbing young women and taking them off at kind of as, personal booty to give to their fighters for the victory. That's not the kind of thing we should be celebrating. And this could be the next nightmare in Syria. Yep. And until we know for sure that that's not going to happen, we should not be doing the happy dance and signing checks. Yeah,
I saw this over the weekend, and I was like, why are people celebrating this? Is there anybody concerned about this? Now, the U.S., we spent, yesterday bombing ISIS installations in Syria to degrade their operation. So in the news this morning, there's all kinds of different takes on this, but in the news this morning, there is this notorious jail, I guess, in Syria, where you had hundreds of thousands of people or 100,000 people. They've now been released. Some have been released. A lot of torturing going on in this. Should I even ask who was actually in this jail? Because the worry, of course, is that they're releasing a whole bunch of bad guys out into the world.
Yeah, well, look, these jails were filled with Assad's political prisoners, so a lot of internal folks who frankly hadn't done anything but, disagreed with Assad. Apparently they have women, children. There's been one poor woman said, yeah, I've been in here for 15 years. I've birthed numerous babies during the time that I've been in here, and I have no idea who any of the fathers are because they were all product of rape and torture and everything else. But at the same time, there were people who were fighting against Assad in this resistance since the Arab Spring, who are hardcore Islamist fighters who have been captured and put into prison and tortured, but now their buddies are in charge, so they're going to be let out and probably rejoin their various organizations to continue the fight, probably not just inside Syria. So it's really, and then there's the weird part. There's apparently a couple of thousand people stuck in parts of the prison that they don't know how to open up the cells.
Yeah, there's no ventilation. There's like they're just in a concrete box.
Yeah, it's really horrible. They're trying to find some of the former Assad personnel who might know the codes to get these people out. But if you were an Assad person, you're not exactly going to walk up and say, I'll help you unlock these doors, because you know you're going to get the axe right after that. This is a horrific circumstance there. Again, happy that Assad is gone, but we have no idea what's going to happen in the next couple of days, weeks, months inside of Syria. It could end up being way worse than even under Assad.
900 troops, I guess we have there in Syria. Is that an accurate number? And what happens to those folks?
Right now, it appears these are folks that are all stationed in the eastern part of Syria. They were there since we had the fight against ISIS. They're in Syria, and basically, obviously ISIS didn't go away. It's still part of the coalition, but it was, massively degraded through our efforts and the support of some of the elements of the resistance that are not radical Islamists. And right now, the word is our folks are going to stay there. The purpose of these strikes over the weekend was to send a message to ISIS as much as anything else. Leave us alone. Don't mess with the Americans. Go do whatever you're going to do with your buddy Jolani, but stay away from our folks. The trouble is, right now, the administration that's in power has absolutely no credibility with anybody. And you got Joe Biden offering help already. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to deter people if at the same time, we're bombing their folks. It's nuts. So I don't know what's going to happen. Anybody who says they do is lying. But it's, again, not time to declare victory.
No. And let me add one last question. People in Nashville driving, 40, 65, 24, they're asking this question because we're hearing, the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, these horrific groups that if you follow the news and talk radio, you know all about these groups. And now here they are in the news again. When it comes to terrorism and the safety of America, is there a way to ascertain how this impacts that at this point?
No, not yet. Our biggest concern right now is refugees. Is this going to cause more refugees to come out of Syria and into places like Jordan or Turkey or over into Iraq? Or is it going to be a situation that allows refugees who have gone overseas to come back to Syria? The former, not a good thing. The latter would be a good thing, but is less likely because most of those folks have built a new life in their new countries. It's probably better than what they had in Syria. And now, other than for love of their country, it'd be a tough thing to uproot your family and go back to what is now an uncertain situation. The threat to Israel is real. And the Israelis are taking steps to protect themselves on the Golan Heights and to make sure that people understand that they're not now a target for the radicals that are now in charge in Syria. So Israel's got another front suddenly in the midst of all the other ones they've been fighting on. So that affects America as well because of our support to Israel, and now that's become more complex. But this could end well, but you don't really want to bet the mortgage yet.
No, you don't. Stephen Bucci, always great to have you on. Outstanding analysis.